On today's show, it is Larry Nance Jr. It's part 2 of our player capsule series with Glen Willis, and it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1978 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I'm your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening into Monday, and I want to encourage you at the top of our podcast, as I always do, to make it your first listen here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. We're going to be there all summer long. We'll be there all season long, and we're honestly going on 10 years now of this podcast. So hopefully you will keep it locked, subscribe, tell your friends, and join us. And this is actually going to be part 2 of 2 with myself and Glen Willis of ATL on 29. If you missed it, part 1 should be available in this same podcast feed right now. So I would recommend strongly starting with part 1. So if you didn't listen to that one already, go back to that one. Part 1's first, then part 2. But we're talking all things Larry Nance Jr. as the start of our player capsule series that we do each and every summer, talking about the entire Hawks roster. And Larry is up first this time around. So again, part 1's available on the same podcast feed. And here we go with part 2. So speaking of the defense, we'll go there now, and we'll maybe circle back to the more broad stuff at the very end of this conversation, but I'll try not to keep you incredibly long on these shows if I can help it, Glenn. You have a life to lead that does not involve guesting with me too much. But defensively, it's a mixed bag with Larry. I think that we've already talked about this a little bit on the offensive side. He will execute. He's usually in the right place. But I think as a center, in particular, as an anchor, he is not great at this point in time. We'll obviously get into more depth than that. But he's limited in some respects. He actually had some pretty good stock numbers, so steals and block numbers. More, actually, especially for his size, like pretty solid, like 3 per game. Sorry, 3 per 100 possessions, which is totally fine for a big. But I gave a little bit of a broad number earlier. I'll give the actual number now. Our friends at Cleaning the Glass had the Hawks with a 124 defensive rating in the minutes with Nance at center for the season. Now, that's not, again, it's a pretty small sample size, but that's a very bad number. And it's not all on him. I'll be the first to say, I try to, the samples got so small. I was trying to, wait out, removing guys, giving him better context. I won't say the name of the player I was trying to remove from the context to improve, but it was the guy that. Huh?
We know who it is.
He isn't going to be on the team anymore. He wasn't on the team midseason. But broadly speaking, the simple thing is the Hawks were not good defensively with Larry at center. In your mind, how much of that is that Larry can't do that, and how much of that is context? Because I'm sure it's some of both.
Yeah, so again, I'll go back to the word template, right? So Onyeka, the offensive template, sort of an overlay, right? Defensively, not the same thing, right? Onyeka, some will say Onyeka's not our rim protector. And, we've had conversations before, like on ATL 29, the league is realizing that if you just have a center that you want to kind of rescue shots at the rim the whole game, he's going to be in foul trouble the whole season. Yeah. So the league is really trying to invest more in point of attack defense and containing the ball, not letting the ball get middle, all the principles that they have. Larry Nance Jr., not the defender in space he was when he was 25, 26, 27.
Yep.
Right. You go back to that era, switchable 1 through 5, if he's the 4, switchable 1 through 4, whatever you want to be. And, big guys, mileage, all that sort of stuff is kind of taking it away. So the defensive template does have to be adjusted, I think, in some cases when you put Nance on the floor. Now you have to ask NBA coaches, is it worth switching up? Okay, when Yeka comes off and Larry goes on, we're going to go to a drop. And then we've been switching 1 through 5. We've been getting to the level of the screen. We've been hedging, whatever, Do you want to make that change in the middle of the game, or do you just want to try to kind of survive, the minutes that are there? That's a philosophical decision that there's a lot of people more qualified than me that know what the right answer is to that. But I do think they asked him at times to do things that he wasn't, physically kind of ideal to do. His technique, getting to the level, for example, his technique, totally fine. His athleticism to recover off of that hedge or off of that double or whatever, not what it was a few years ago. It just takes a little longer for him to get back and all that sort of stuff. The other professional stuff on defense, communication, the organization, all that sort of stuff, anchoring in the form of those things, total pro, does it all, perfectly, really knows what he's doing there. But for me, you're on the floor with David Roddy, like good luck,
there it
Uh,
is.
yeah. You're on the floor, in some cases when they had time, like, Nance at the I can't even remember how much Nance and Niang played together. If like it must have been
I
like 3
think
or 4 games.
honestly, even less, maybe even less than that. Like it was
Yeah.
very, very little, I think. Yeah.
But there were some, because of the injury, Jalen's injury, was created a kind of a domino effect that led to some pretty tough kind of lineup choices to make and manage through and stuff like that. So so for me, I do think that as we look ahead to next season, and I know we'll talk about should they bring him back or not, but for me, his greatest value is that every team, when they're playing down 8, 10, 12 points in the fourth quarter, wants to juice their lineup with shooting. And when you can put shooting at the 5 to help you generate more threes, that's something coaches, as a lever that coaches love to have. And that's something that, he can give them when they're trying to kind of play from behind. You just like with, you imagine like next season, if he's back and Yang's back and the Hawks are trailing, you got Nance at the 5 and Yang maybe at the 4. They're going to have to be scrappy on defense and whatever, but almost every coach, when they're playing from behind, juices lineup with shooting. And that's something that a Niang and a Nance lineup can do, even with the very obvious trade-offs on defense.
Yeah, and look, some of the numbers, like the advanced numbers, your EPMs, your Raptors, are not very kind as defense this last season. Again, given all the context, those are also, depending on what your formula you're looking at, like they're based on on-off metrics, and the Hawks were worse with him on the court defensively. But again, part of that's context. I don't want to say, we do try to go a different to another level on these shows in general, but I wouldn't just come on and say Larry Nance is a bad defender. Like I don't believe that to be true. Yep. Is he a limited defender at this point? Yeah, I think so. Like I think you need to have you need to know what you're getting and not ask him to do things he can't do. Like you just got into. Like you don't want to have him be a pure drop defender who's like asked to be, Rudy Gobert at the rim. Like he's not going to do that. And you're not going to put him on an island in space either and have him block up against guards. Like he's not going to do that very well. But if he's part of a scheme, it can work. And I don't want to overweight this too much because Jalen's really good. But I think it's like 100 minutes or so with Nance and Jalen, the numbers are pretty good because you give Larry at center. It's a smaller scale version of the thing we talk about with the Kongwu forever, and we'll talk about, I'm sure when we get to him and his capsule. If you put a real 4 next to him, it's a lot easier to get by with Larry Nance at center on defense if it's Jalen Johnson next to him. Or if it's Mo Gay. Like I don't think Larry and Mo played like hardly at all together because Mo was in the G League when Larry was healthy and vice versa or whatever. But I think if you played Mo Gay and Larry Nance, you could play defense with that group. Like that's a viable defensive group. I don't know. Offensively, we have to see. But what I don't think you want to do in big samples defensively is put Larry at center with like a small ball 4 option. That'd be what I would say is, I mean, again, that's probably too broad, but I think you get the point of what I'm saying. Like put him next to a real 4 and you could probably live with.
Yeah, that's a break glass when you're down by 12, 15 points. And that really should be the only scenario that you're there. It's kind of funny when I was kind of prepping here, when I think back, the game that jumps out at me for people being frustrated with his defense was the Spurs game when he was on Wemby.
Yep.
And I don't want to say like I'm right, everyone else is wrong. I have my I definitely don't. Right? I don't know what Quinn's philosophy was, but for me, everybody was like, no, what he did on Wemby was fine. Like, what are you going to do? Wemby's making 32-foot 3-pointers and all that sort of stuff. But it seemed like people wanted him to leave Wemby to go help, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you leave Wemby, who's going to keep him off the offensive? Like, you're done. Like, he's going to get every offensive rebound. I mean, you want to stay with him on the perimeter, keep a body on him. I'm guessing that's what Quinn was emphasizing. I don't know that, right? I don't know that. But it's one of those things. It's like, man, like, okay, he goes, helps, and makes a shot harder, and Wemby just cleans it up because there's nobody there to put a body on him, and that was one game where it felt like there was a lot more noise about, whether it's Twitter or wherever, about his defense. But it was another example where it's another example of one of those things like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
The leagues have to figure that one out because Wemby is a completely different kind of thing.
Today's show is brought to you by CarGurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting and not exhausting. But between the confusing prices and the hidden fees, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. That's why I love using CarGurus. They'll be cutting through all the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. They have over 4 million listings, and CarGurus is more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data that you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. If you need a deal that you can trust, CarGurus makes it easy to shop and compare vehicles side by side with unbiased deal ratings. And the best feature might be the price drop alerts. You know exactly when the perfect car is available for your budget. Plus, the in-depth vehicle details give you peace of mind before stepping onto any lot. It is no wonder the similar web estimated traffic data shows CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. And one more time, the place to go is CarGurus, CarGurus.com. One more time, it's CarGurus.com. It was also a game that they lost by, I believe, 1 point.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, one of those games, and I think he played like 15 minutes or whatever it was, maybe 20 in that game. And wasn't Clint out? Somebody was out. Was Clint out? I think it was Clint. Or either Clint or Nick. One of those guys was out for that game. He ended up playing more than he probably was going to play. Look at the box score now. No Clint in that one. So I think they had Nance on Wemby at the end of the game sometimes. You know, anyway. You want to overweight that, and it's actually a unique case in prepping for this where I don't know how much Hawks fans remember of Larry Nance, like actually, because it's been so long. I mean, all these they haven't played in a month plus, but he hasn't played 3.5 months as we're talking. Like he missed the last 2 months of the season, and also didn't play so much. So it's like, do people actually have a full idea of the Larry Nance experience? I'm not even really sure. So maybe that's why we're doing this podcast. But it is interesting to me. Look, we teased it already about him being a great locker room guy. That stuff matters. Larry's completing a multi-year deal where he was making 8 figures per season. I think if I had to guess, Larry probably won't be making 8 figures a season anymore in his career, but he'll be in the league for sure and for a while, I would imagine. And we should talk about the fact that he's going to be a free agent basically now. I guess technically, he and Clint and Garrison. Who else am I missing? Oh, and Karras. They actually could all sign extensions right now. Yeah. They don't have to hit free agency, but the assumption would be, as most guys hit free agency when they're hitting free agency, they'll be a free agent on July 1st. And he's expressed multiple times now, exit interviews, social media, all that stuff, about how much he liked Atlanta, even with the challenge of the injuries. I think he likes it here. The team really likes Larry. I have said on the record, and I'll say it again now for people that missed it, between Clint and Larry, I think Larry is much more likely to return than Clint. Just based on intel, that's just my read. I'm not saying that Clint's impossible to return. Never said that and won't say that. But I think the vibe I'm getting, what I'm hearing, is that Larry has a clearer path. Maybe that part of that's maybe what the salary might be. Part of that might be what the role might be. All those things. Clint's popular too, but Larry's a popular guy in the locker room. Before I get into like some of the Hawks options, because look, this is an interesting free agent center class. If you're the Hawks, and as we're recording this podcast, the still unnamed president of basketball operations, how would you approach this? Like, obviously, you don't want to give Larry Nance a blank check, but they have his bird rights. They can do whatever they want with him, basically, as long as he agrees. They don't have match rights. But would you proactively want to bring Larry back if the price was reasonable?
I would for sure. There's one thing we kind of touched on but haven't talked about too, is that it's going to be interesting to see if the Hawks continue to do this. But a lot of their transactions the last, say, 12 months, maybe even more than that, have really been they've really been leaning into culture fit.
Yeah.
Right. The Reece Shea pick definitely was that guy who will just do what's asked of him, embrace the role he's asked to do. Nance is that kind of guy as well. You know, I know we'll talk about Terrence Mann, but I know a lot of Hawks fans found that to be a frustrating experience. I wasn't as frustrated, but takes the assignment. And that's really kind of one of the values of having a guy like Nance. So I think he's a logical guy to bring back. The big question I have is, what happens on draft night? Do they take a young center with the 22nd pick, right?
Yep.
if they do, Nance is like a perfect mentor, for a young center that's on the roster. Really, in my mind, you couldn't find a better one,
Yeah.
than him, right? Or are they going to look for a more experienced, backup that might be available and affordable? So to me, like the draft, what they do on draft night swings so many decisions of where they invest. I'm still getting up to speed on the broader draft class, but it does feel like there's going to be some options at 22, some capable, fourth combo 4-5s, whatever. And so for me, if that happens, I think he's the perfect guy to kind of bring back and put into that spot. As you and I know, like young centers usually find it rough early in their career, and it takes some time and stuff like that. So even if he's playing more than you would maybe prefer, while you're kind of getting a rookie kind of acclimated and stuff like that, I think that's the path to go. But draft is still what I mean,
6 weeks.
6 weeks away. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens. But to me, so much of the July 1 decisions, we'll say, really do kind of swing from what they do on draft night.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I wish it was easier sometimes to explain on all these decisions. Clint's the same way to a different degree, but especially with Larry, like he is so versatile in that. And look, I don't know what Larry's market is. Like he'll have one. Teams are going to want him. Like especially veteran teams are going to want to bring him in as an insurance piece or a fourth big or whatever it's going to be. I'm not worried about him getting a job. He's going to have a job. It's just I don't know is it going to be the minimum? Is it going to be more than that? I don't know what he's going to prioritize. He's made some money in his career. All those things. So you have that aspect of it. Then you have the free agent market is not like crazy deep at center, but you got some guys like beyond your Miles Turner, Brooke Lopez types, which are in a different tier. Like those guys are starters still. Steve Adams maybe, but you got Capella, ironically in the same class. You got Luke Cornett, Kevon Looney. Like there's some names. They're like backup centers, and like which teams want to do what at center matters here. And then you're 100% right about the draft. Having 2 first-round picks, the Hawks could certainly take a big in this draft. If you were to just say, okay, if you guaranteed me they're going to make both picks, the chances of them drafting one of them with a big is fairly likely. I'm not saying it's going to definitely happen, but it's definitely there's a lot of bigs in their range in 13 and 22. Yeah. But also, what team do you want to be? And it's something we'll be talking about a lot the next 6 weeks and beyond is like, okay, if you're really trying to push in, take the next step to win now next year, do you want to have a backup center who's a 19-year-old? I don't know. Like, and if you do you want to have a backup center who's actually your backup center, like not be like almost have that guy be your third center for the season? You know what I mean? Like there's some interesting, because I'm prone to saying this, most rookies are not going to help you win basketball games. Yep. Especially early in their career. So how do you balance that? And that's always the thing about the draft. Like you're not drafting for need, because you know this, Glenn. The one area on the depth chart right now for the Hawks where there's literally nothing, basically, is backup center. Because Clint and Larry are free agents. Right. Maybe Mo Gay. I mean, Mo Gay could play backup center, but they've always viewed him as a 4 more than a 5. He played a little bit of 5, but other than Mo, that's basically they got nothing there. And that leads Hawks fans, even ones that are higher on Okongwu, then you have the whole Okongwu piece about him being too small. Regardless of that, I'm sure this happens to you. Half the questions I get or more about the draft are about centers. Yeah. People are interested in centers. And Larry, I mean, the good thing about Larry, to bring it back to Larry, is that you can draft a center. You could even sign Luke Cornett or whichever big center you want and still sign Larry Nance, because Larry Nance can play the 4, can play the 5, won't cost a ton of money, great locker room guy. Like signing Larry is not prohibitive to do anything else. Like anything else. You could draft somebody, you could sign somebody. Whereas, I don't mean this in a negative way, if you were to sign Clint to what Clint's market's going to be this summer, that's your backup center move. I think. Clint's going to have a market of a decent amount of money, and Clint is a very limited player as far as like what he can and can't do. You know what Clint is. Yeah. Whereas Larry could do a lot of different things and wouldn't stop you from doing anything else. So that's a long way of saying it, but I think that all of that contributes to what I think is, I'm not saying he's likely to come back. I don't know the answer to that, but it's definitely possible because I think there's mutual interest. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims is actually making underwear for men, I was intrigued by that. I've heard a lot about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try for myself. And let me tell you, it's definitely living up to the hype. Many people have issues with their underwear, from fit to comfort, or just finding the right style for what they want, but Skims changes all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style to boot. For example, the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs have rave reviews. They're perfect for an active lifestyle to move with you, never lose their shape, and stay in place all day long. Whether you're working out or running errands or anything in between, they're the most comfortable and reliable underwear available anywhere for you. Plus, lightweight material feels amazing in a situation. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com/lockedonnba and at Skims stores. Also, let them know that we sent you to them. After you place an order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the menu that drops down and follows that. One more time, the place to go is skims.com/lockedonnba.
You imagine like bigs that can shoot would love to play with a high level passer like Trey. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just the shot quality is just it's a different different shot diet when you're playing with Trey and things like that. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I just trying to think, like, is Nurkic a free agent? I'm trying to remember, like, what is the whole list of things,
I had names that are, like, it's like Miles Plumlee's a free agent. Like there's a couple of restricted guys. Dayron Sharp is a free agent, for example. Like there's some decent names, but like a lot of I don't know. It's a mixed bag of a list. I think Luke Cornett's more popular than he was before. There are centers, but there are not like an endless amount of them, I would say. And a lot of them are like you're probably not going to be able to get Steven Adams. Like I think he's going to probably stay in Houston or go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be they have the MLE if they want to throw it at somebody, if they want to go with a bigger option. But it's interesting.
Adams' physicality is just especially in the Western Conference. I mean, you want to deal with Zubac, you better have someone like Steve.
Well, and that's why I'm sure Hawks fans are saying I'd love to have Steve. Yeah, me too. I'd love to have Steven Adams. That guy is really, really good at basketball, but I don't think he's going to be jumping to leave if he doesn't have to leave.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and think about young guys like Khalil Ware. This year, like Miami invested a lot of minutes in him. And he showed a lot of progress this year. But if you watched a lot of Miami games, there were also games where he just looked like a rookie, and wasn't, really able to kind of keep up with adjustments and things like that. That's not me. I mean, I think Miami, whereas like this dude is worth investing in, and I agree with him. I think he's going to be a good player. But it says if you want to kind of look at what the Hawks might do next season as a team that's going to try to maybe kind of push up higher to the standings. Do you roll a 19-year-old out there on October 21st or whenever their first game is going to be, and roll with that, or do you wait till mid-December to start kind of we got a back-to-back. Larry, you're playing, if he's back, you're playing on night one. Rookie, you're playing on night two. Oh, we got Utah on the second night. We're gonna let Larry sit on the bench that night and go take maybe a game where a younger guy is a better fit. So that kind of maneuverability is something that they might end up needing to have the ability to do.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I have one more question. I'm gonna let you go, but I want to make sure that I ask it because I'm sure I'll be asked. I probably already have been asked it. The one thing that I would say about Larry Nance Jr. is that what I would not do as the Hawks is bring him back as the primary backup center, like the only investment of the position. That's what I would not do. Do you agree with me on that? Am I being silly? Am I being too low on Larry? Because I think I would not want my center room to be Okongwu and Nance with not much else. If I'm going to bring Nance back, it's either going to be with a rookie first round pick as a third guy, or with a pick your other veteran, maybe bigger bodies backup center, like some other option. I would not just have Larry as my only backup center. Would be my take.
Well, Brad, they need a 7-footer, right? So,
I almost made that joke too. But even if it's not a 7-footer, you and I agree on that. I'm sure that's going to come up a lot on the Okongwu discussion. But it is true. Like, look, as much as I'm not a size only evaluator of center play, I do think that I would be wary of having someone like Larry as the only backup for Okongwu. That's
I think the best teams have configurability behind the starting center, right?
Yep.
Nance, like I said, you're playing from behind. His shooting, his ball handling, all that, his ball skills, all that sort of stuff helps you in that scenario. when you need a really physical, and Nance is a pretty physical guy, but he's still, going up against Embiid if he's healthy, or going up against Jokic or whatever, or chasing Wemby all over the perimeter, not necessarily the assignment you want to give him, And so I think having a third guy that can is a stronger rebounder, is a stronger rim protector, has more, just takes up more space when you're dealing with other opposing bigs who like to play in the paint and close to the rim and stuff like that. I think that supplementary or complementary kind of skill set that's different than Nance's, where that'll let you kind of swing towards more defensive value when that's the thing that you need. I think that makes a ton of sense. And so for me, I sort of like, when we talked about, we kind of did a season look back on the Hawks. It's like Niang shouldn't be a guy that you have to play every night, right?
Yeah.
Right. And Nance is probably at this point in the career that way too. I never worry about him not doing the right thing, not playing the right way, none of that stuff. But there are some matchups where you just need, something different than what he has to offer. And the best teams build contingencies into their kind of positional kind of roster construction to let them lean into whatever they need in a certain matchup or night.
Yeah, I think the word that we used a lot on that show that you were talking about, which dropped, if anybody missed it, it was a few weeks ago, was optionality. Just giving your coaching staff options that they can utilize. And the good thing, we just, not that I'm rooting against Larry playing, but we just saw him. I'm sure he wants to play, man. These guys are professional athletes. He's a confident guy, but he was okay. Like, he navigated life not playing every night and was okay with it. Like, he didn't cause a ruckus, like any of that stuff. And I think that if he came back, and look, he doesn't have to. He's unrestricted. He can sign wherever he wants to. But if he came back, he'd probably know, like, hey, I'm not going to play 75 games if I had to guess. So, and that's fine. At this point in his career, like, he'll age gracefully. If I'm the Hawks, I definitely have a standing offer to Larry. I don't know what it's going to be, how much money it's going to be for, how many years it's going to be, any of that stuff. But I would be like, hey, Larry, we'd like to have you back as long as you don't get it. If he gets a massive offer somewhere, if somebody else offers him the mid-level, you shake hands and say, Larry, we enjoyed it. That's too much for us, but we love you, kind of thing. But if barring an offer like that, like, make him say no, make him go somewhere else. He's valuable.
Agreed. Yeah. I think he's helpful, and hopefully, the messaging is that he had a good experience, and hopefully that helps the Hawks, because I think he'd be helpful to have back next year. But I mean, at the end of the day, Larry gets to decide.
That's the thing. Yeah, he is unrestricted. He's a veteran. He's an adult. He will do whatever he wants to do and prioritize what he wants to prioritize. But if you're the team, you can just give him an offer and see what he wants to do. So, well, Glenn, I will get out of here now, and we will effort to not go an hour on Larry Nance. I will not ask you this maybe every time we talk, but where can folks find all of your fantastic musings? And we talked about your writing at the beginning of this conversation, but you have a podcast that you co-host with some of my friends as well. Where can people find that?
Yeah, ETL 29. Last one we did was sort of what do we learn from the playoffs, and big tip of the hat. Tyler brought some great stuff on that episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, go listen to that. My Patreon, you can check that out as well. You can find the link in my bio on both Blue Sky and Twitter, or X, whatever you're calling it. Looking forward to conference final previews with a couple of special guests coming out of the weekend here, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm doing 2 to 3 draft prospects a week there. It's very hard to do because,
those are great. I'm reading them all. Those are great.
I know, but trying to find enough footage to like spend 2 hours watching and then have that be enough. If it's one of those things you feel a little fraudulent, like because like you look at the people who do it full time and like definitely go put Sam Vecini's opinion like universes were higher than mine, but yeah, I look at it from just sort of a coach's lens and do my best in that sense and stuff like that. But you can see those, and then P3 Hoops. I think I'm going to do 3 draft profiles over there. So yeah. All those places come find our work and come say hi.
You'll appreciate this before we sign off. I just got a text from Tower Jones while we were recording about Hanson Yang. He is all in on Hanson Yang as a draft prospect, and he can't stop telling me about it, which he's also tweeting about. So I think I'm safe to say this because he's tweeting about it too. He's in on Hanson Yang. This is what we do. We're talking about basketball all the time, even on a Saturday night when we're recording this podcast. So no, thanks, Glenn. Thanks for doing this. We'll do another one. We'll do another one soon. maybe not Clint and Larry back to back. Maybe we'll find something else to talk about the next time we come on. But Clint's coming.
And I was going to joke that if we led with Clint, that you were going to have 1,000 people unsubscribe from your podcast. So we don't want that to happen.
And that is why this is not about Clint Capella out of the gate. That's the only reason why we didn't start with Clint tonight, was because I don't want to get people to leave the podcast. But one more time, thank you to Glenn for being here. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, and we'll see you all next time.